Most people think the worst thing you can order at McDonald's is simply the item with the most calories, but that's actually one of the biggest myths in fast food. The real menu traps are much sneakier. Some items are overpriced, some look far better in the advertisements than they do in real life, and others have convinced millions of people they're getting an amazing deal when they're actually missing out on much better choices sitting just a few inches away on the menu. That's exactly why today's countdown might surprise you. We're revealing 7 McDonald's menu items you should never order and 5 that are genuinely worth every dollar. And trust me, by the time we reach number 1, you'll probably look at the menu very differently. Let's start with a sandwich that's been around for generations, the Filet-O-Fish. It wasn't originally designed to compete with burgers. Back in the 1960s, it was created for customers looking for a meat-free option on Fridays, and over the years it built a loyal following. On paper, it sounds like the healthier choice. Fish instead of beef. A lighter meal. Something that won't leave you feeling weighed down. That's exactly what most people expect. But once you unwrap it, the illusion starts to disappear. The fish patty is noticeably smaller than many people remember. The tartar sauce ends up doing most of the work, and then there's the famous half slice of cheese. Yes, only half. It's become part of the sandwich's identity, but it also leaves plenty of customers wondering why they're paying almost the same price as much larger burgers. The biggest surprise is that while many order it believing it's the healthier option, the combination of fried fish, creamy tartar sauce, processed cheese and a white bun doesn't make it nearly as light as its reputation suggests. This is a perfect example of what's known as the health halo effect. The word fish makes our brains assume we're making a smarter decision, even when the rest of the ingredients tell a different story. Don't get us wrong. There are people who absolutely love the Filet-O-Fish, and taste is always personal. But if your goal is getting the best value for your money, there are simply stronger choices sitting right beside it on the menu. And speaking of paying more than you should, let's move to something sweet. McDonald's apple pie has become almost as iconic as the golden arches themselves. For many people, one bite instantly brings back childhood memories. But here's the interesting part. The pie people remember isn't even the same one sold today. The original version was deep-fried, giving it an incredibly crispy shell that many longtime fans still insist was today's baked version. Certainly looks appealing in the advertisements. The expectation couldn't be clearer. But reality depends almost entirely on one thing: timing. If you happen to get one fresh from the oven, it's genuinely enjoyable. The crust has a satisfying crunch, the filling is warm, and everything comes together nicely. But leave that same pie sitting in the warmer for a while, and it can quickly lose its magic. The crust softens, the filling feels sparse, and suddenly you're wondering where all those delicious apples from the commercial disappeared. What's fascinating is that people often keep buying it because they're chasing a memory rather than a dessert. Nostalgia is one of the strongest forces in marketing. Our brains naturally remember the best experiences while quietly editing out the disappointing ones. That's why so many customers continue believing the next apple pie will taste exactly like the one they had years ago. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't. That inconsistency is exactly what lands it on this list. Now let's move from dessert to one of the biggest breakfasts on the menu. The Big Breakfast certainly lives up to its name. Looking at the promotional photos, it almost feels like the perfect way to start a long day. You get scrambled eggs, sausage, a crispy hash brown, a warm biscuit, pancakes, butter and syrup all arranged. It looks generous. It looks satisfying. It looks like incredible value. But appearances can be deceiving. Once you actually begin eating, something feels strangely disconnected. Instead of one complete breakfast, it feels like several different meals awkwardly sharing the same plate. One moment you're eating sweet pancakes dripping with syrup. The next you're switching to salty sausage. Then rather than complementing each other, the flavors compete for your attention. There's also the issue of sheer volume. Many people order the big breakfast because they assume more food automatically means a better deal. Restaurants understand this psychology extremely well. Bigger portions create the feeling of greater value, even when most customers struggle to finish everything. And if you think that's heavy, wait until we talk about the breakfast sandwich that made thousands of fans when McDonald's brought back the bacon, egg and cheese bagel after years away from many locations. Customers were thrilled. Some even claimed it was the best breakfast sandwich the chain had ever made. So naturally, expectations shot through the roof. The problem is that reality doesn't always keep up with the hype. Crispy bacon, fluffy eggs, melted cheese and creamy breakfast sauce sound like a winning combination. But the bagel itself changes everything. Unlike a soft English muffin or biscuit, a bagel is naturally much denser. Every bite requires more chewing, making the sandwich feel surprisingly heavy. Instead of finishing breakfast feeling energized, many people end up feeling weighed down before the day has. It's certainly filling, but filling isn't always the same thing as satisfying. And considering its premium price compared to other breakfast options, it's difficult to argue that it's the of course. Things are about to get even more interesting. The next item proves that even a fan favorite can be one of the biggest gambles on the McDonald's menu. We're talking about the McFlurry. On paper, it's the perfect dessert, creamy vanilla soft serve mixed with crushed cookies or candy. And when it's made properly, it's fantastic. Every spoonful is smooth, crunchy, and exactly what you'd hope for. The problem is consistency. One day your McFlurry is packed with toppings, and the next it feels like someone sprinkled a few cookie crumbs over plain vanilla ice cream. Then there's the famous "ice cream machine is broken" joke. It's become part of internet culture because so many customers have experienced it. Whether the machine is being cleaned or simply unavailable, the result is the same. You leave without the dessert you wanted. That's why the McFlurry lands on this list. It's not bad when it's good, but you're taking a gamble every single time. And speaking of expectations not matching reality, let's move to a burger that sounds like an upgrade but often isn't. The Quarter Pounder with Cheese Deluxe promises more. More vegetables, more freshness, and supposedly more flavor. But burgers are all about balance, and this one loses it. The lettuce and tomatoes add moisture, making the burger messy to eat, while the extra toppings compete with the beef instead of letting it shine. Ironically, many McDonald's fans prefer the regular Quarter Pounder because it's simpler and the beef remains the star. This is classic marketing psychology. We naturally assume more ingredients mean a better burger, but sometimes less really is more. And that brings us to the number one menu item you should avoid. At first glance, the double filet-o-fish seems like the obvious solution. If one fish patty feels too small, adding another should make the sandwich better. But that's not what happens. Instead, the sandwich becomes thicker without becoming more enjoyable. The tartar sauce still dominates the flavor, the bun gets squashed, and the whole thing becomes awkward to eat. On top of that, the price increases enough that you could easily buy a much better meal from the menu. It's a perfect example of paying more without getting a better experience. That's why the double filet-o-fish earns the number one spot, not because it's disgusting, but because it's one of the weakest values on the menu. Now let's leave the disappointments behind because McDonald's also has a few menu items that consistently deliver exactly what customers expect. At number 5 are the hash browns. They're crispy on the outside, soft on the inside, and surprisingly consistent. There's nothing fancy about them, but that's exactly why they work. Sometimes the simplest foods are the hardest to improve. Number 4 is the legendary Chicken McNuggets. They've been a fast food favorite for decades because they're incredibly versatile. Whether you dip them in barbecue sauce, sweet and sour, honey mustard, or spicy buffalo, they always feel like a different experience. They're easy to share, great for kids and adults, and one of the most reliable items on the menu. Coming in at number 3 is the Egg McMuffin. This sandwich helped redefine fast food breakfast. Instead of loading it with unnecessary ingredients, McDonald's kept it simple: egg, Canadian bacon, cheese, and a toasted English muffin. Everything works together perfectly, creating a breakfast that's filling without being overwhelming. That's why it's remained popular for decades. Our runner-up is the world-famous fries. Few fast food items have earned a reputation like these. When they're fresh, hot, and lightly salted, they're incredibly hard to beat. Crispy on the outside, fluffy on the inside, they're one of the biggest reasons people keep coming back to McDonald's. And finally, our number 1 pick that's actually worth ordering is the classic cheeseburger. It doesn't rely on fancy toppings or oversized portions. Instead, it gets the basics exactly right. The beef, cheese, onions, pickles, ketchup, and mustard create a perfectly balanced burger that's affordable, satisfying, and remarkably consistent. Sometimes the oldest classics stay on the menu because they simply work. So what's the lesson from today's countdown? Bigger doesn't always mean better. More expensive doesn't always mean higher quality. And sometimes the smartest order is the simplest one. Now it's your turn. Which McDonald's menu item will you defend no matter what anyone says? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more countdowns just like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.